Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Tushara Jayaratna from SEC. Welcome to the CPD. We were thinking of having some CPDs on the current situation, especially the economic situation and also the country situation and about the market. So this is one of those CPDs. And then today's CPD will be on Sri Lankan economy, the way forward. For that, we have invited Professor Janak Kumarasinghe. He is one of the best who can speak about this subject on the economy. And I would like to thank Professor Kumarasinghe for accepting our invitation. And one more thing that I have to tell you, that probably this will be the last CPD that we are going to have online. Since the situation is okay now, we are going to have again physical CPDs. That will be more helpful, and also there will be more interaction. So we are planning to have another CPD probably end of this month, and then hopefully that will be physical. And then also, if you need any, if you can suggest some topics, any topics that you are interested in, then you can contact me or Sadi or my division people. We will conduct those CPD. And would like to ask everyone to keep it mute, otherwise you might disturb the presenter. Professor Janak Kumarasinghe is the professor in business economics, head Department of Business Economics, Faculty of Management Studies, University of Jayewardenepura, and he holds BSc Management, Public Administration special degree from University of Jayewardenepura, also a postgraduate diploma from PIM, and MSc Development Policy, National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, Japan, and a PhD from Ritsumeikan University, Asia Pacific University, Japan. And also his awards and honors include the Scholarship Award for Academic Excellency of Oita Prefecture, offered by the World Office, APU Scholarship offered by the Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University, Graduate Student Research Support Program offered by the same university, Japanese Government Scholarship offered by the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, and also he has won the Ranmini Samaratunga Prize and the gold medal for the best student in 1997. And also he has authored several journal papers and conference symposium papers in his long academic career. After this presentation, we will have a question and answer session. So over to you, Professor Kumarasinghe.
Okay, thank you. That very long, biodata on that you express on my sides, right? So I don't know how far that I could keep those promises that you made on this long explanation on my, profile, right? Anyway, first of all, really appreciate that giving me this chance. Hope I'm audible to everybody, right? So, okay, good. Uh, so this is a great opportunity me to talk these people who are really engaged in the stock market on Sri Lanka, which is one of my interested area on yeah, when especially when I was a undergrads. Yes, I did some observations and research that time, but now my focus is more on the economic development of this country, right? So hopefully yes, a very humble request, it's better if you all could mute the mic, as the moderator said. That will help us to have a much better concentration while we are doing the presentation, right? My main focus would be, as I was asked to discuss about the economic potential and the way forward of this economy. So I try my level best to explain the economic situation of Sri Lanka with my knowledge. But Before that, first of all, I have to tell that all the data that I'm using, I have taken from Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So I have not cooked any data, not manipulated. Just I have taken the data from the central bank, and I'm going to have the analysis. And the other thing is, if anyone wants to ask anything, so during my presentation also, you could disturb, and I know that you could reserve your questions until I finish my presentation, but you don't want to do that. During the presentation, one could disturb and ask, or if you need further clarification or explanation, or if you have any counter arguments, so you all are welcome to do so. Uh, so I really like it. And as the moderator said, I'm also the last person who would like to have these kind of presentations and discussions on this online platform. To be frank, but this is the only option available at the moment. So hopefully, in future we could have more, on site presentations and interactions rather than this online platform, because I'm really fed up with this online platform, especially when I'm dealing with the students. Okay, we have lost that the good old days where we had a lot of interactions, discussions, and during a lecture session, but that has gone now. Right? Anyway, so Sri Lankan economy and the way forward, that would be the given topic to me. I try my level best to do a fair, presentation within this framework. So, what I want to cover is our economic strength, our challenges, and if you want to understand the where we are heading to, the way forward, what we should do. First of all, we should understand the root cause of the problem. So, rather than addressing the symptoms of here and there, so if you understand the the root cause for the problem, so we could launch much better counter measurements for it, like that. I mean, if I get a very simple layman's example, the fever, what I believe is a kind of a symptom. It's not the root cause. You might get fever because of a kidney disease, or maybe a germ has attacked your organs, or whatever it is. Therefore, the fever is a kind of a symptom. So here, the what we are seeing in Sri Lanka at the moment, there are a lot of symptoms. So what we need, if you need to really correct it, if you make a U-turn, we need to understand the root cause. So I try my level best to go back to the root cause and tell exactly what shall we do. But having said that, you all should understand that we are in a very critical point at the moment in this country. I don't think most of the people who are governing this country at the moment in top positions may not be really understand the clear picture of it. That's why if you go back a couple of weeks back, even the World Bank has explained that in their website. They said that it's very difficult to predict and forecast on Sri Lanka's economic future. So if the World Bank, that is the best institute at the moment, whatever we say, there are a lot of criticisms, plus and minus on the World Bank role, what they have done and what they are doing. But forget about it. Anyway, that is the most accepted and respected and sought out institution at the moment in terms of long-term economic development. So even that institute have given a statement on Sri Lanka that they also couldn't forecast on the Sri Lankan future. So then, how could a layman like us do that, right? Anyway, what shall we do later on? So first of all, I would like to have a little short analysis, the strength, weaknesses, and opportunities and threat on Sri Lanka. So strength and weaknesses are what our inherent inside, and OT, that opportunities and threats coming from the outside. So we'll discuss our strength and weaknesses of the economy inside, as well as what are the opportunities and threats we are having at the moment from the outside world. Strength and weaknesses are inside, OT are little outside. I would like to begin this presentation, my first half, taking you back to the 1940s, when we got the independence from the British nation. So at that time in 1950, maybe this is open secret. I mean, maybe most of you have heard it before. In 1950, Sri Lankan's per capita income, it's around $89. We are just $1 behind Japan at that time, and Singapore is $30. Okay, then you could understand what has happened in after, let's say, 50 years. Sri Lanka is still struggling at 840, Japan 32,000, Singapore 28,000. Now Singapore has even overtaken Japan. Okay, it's another 20 years. So it's not a long history. Uh, so this is the picture. So what I want to emphasize at first, okay, in 1948, in Asia, we had the strongest economy, and our foreign reserves are much better than at that time most of the Asian counterparts at the moment. In Asia, forget about the South Asia. South Asia, we were the best in 1950s. That kind of economy we had, and also our economy were really harmonized with the world economy. That's mean what I want to tell. I mean, we had a strong import export economy as well at that time, and we had a huge foreign reserve. Okay, when this we got this political independence 1950s. So from that point, you all know, I don't want to explain what we are at the moment. Okay, there were no country called Bangladesh. Bangladesh, established even after 3 years I born. Uh, that was 1973. My birth is in 1970, right? 3 years after my birth, even Bangladesh established. But you know, I will tell what's the Bangladesh economy at this moment. Right. Now, having that little, detailed background, I would like to pay you attention because I know that today my audience is well-educated people who are practitioners in, 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 in especially in the stock market. So therefore, I know that most of you are familiar with some of these national accounting identities. Okay, so therefore, before getting to the application side of the economy, I would like to draw your attention on some of the little theoretical part of this economy. If you have any clarification, as I told you at the beginning, you could disturb and get ask questions. You don't want to reserve your questions until I finish my presentation. Right. National account identities, you all know that we are in a circular flow economy. I mean, it's a kind of a circular flow. So how far this is circulating will tell us the strength of the economy and the GDP growth rate of the country. Right. So the gross domestic product of a country can be considered from either demand side or from the factor payment side. That is income side and demand side. That is another side from value addition side. For the time being, let's forget about that part. Let's concentrate on the a country's total production in layman's language. We could calculate either from the demand side, that's expenditure, another word that we could use, or the income side. So demand side identities are, that's mean the income is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. I think you may have heard this thing before or familiar, because this theoretical understanding is very important us for my second half of presentation. So C mean the consumption, the total consumption of a economy. When we added it the investment income, we get the private sector income plus the government income. You all know that government purchases, and X minus M, that is the import, and X represents exports, M represents imports. Normally, in an economic identity, when we put x minus m, because normally we believe and we expect a country to have less imports than what they export, because you have to use your exported income to import, because within the country with these three identities you could do the exchange or you could do the deals within the country. So therefore you could use the domestic currency. If it is Sri Lanka, you could use rupees. But for this second half, this x minus m part, in this x minus m part, if you want to do the transactions, you need dollars. Therefore, we expect a country to have a, a less import and a higher exports. That's what normally we expect, right? Therefore, if when we add all these together, consumption, investment, government income, and the x minus m, you get the total income of a country. That's mean if I go much familiar technical term for you, that is the gross domestic product of a country, or gross, right? So having said that, uh, if he the same thing we could count, because it is a circular flow, as this my left side top extreme picture shows you, sorry, right side, we could the same thing we could calculate from the income side. There are some mics still on the the host. Can you please mute the mics? That would be much better. Still, yeah. I don't have the hosting power, so host, if you could mute some of the mics, and that would be better. Right. Anyway, come back. So on the factor payment side, so the GDP we could calculate C plus again the consumption and the private serving. This is P is the private serving plus the tax. When we added these two, this uh, the same GDP we could count on from a other side. This is the two side of a coin. You will get in both cases the same figure, GDP. So that's mean GDP could be calculated using the income side or the expenditure side. So when you do a little subtraction from the from second to using the second formula and the first formula, that's mean if you could rearrange the first and second formula, then you get a identity called that's your m minus x, because y will set off. So y will set off, the c to c will be set off. So finally what you get, m minus x equal I minus sp plus g minus t. So what is this g minus t? That is, g normally represent the total government's taxation, sorry, expenditure, and minus t is the taxation. So normally government do their expenditure, capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure. The normally government put their budget. In the budget is a kind of a statement where it shows the government income and expenditure. So this G minus T is kind of a government income and expenditure. G is the expenditure part, T is the taxation, the income part. So G minus T and I minus SP, I is the investment, SP is the private service, will equal to M minus X in a country. That's mean in a country, import export expenditure will equal to the total national savings. What will happen theoretically if your national savings is negative, or if your total savings is negative, that will have an impact on M minus X. That's mean import export expenditure, right? On the other side, this import and expenditure, later on I will show you, is very important for economy. This is your dollar economy, where you get your foreign reserves, and this is the inside internal government, income and expenditure, investment and savings part, right? Okay, I will empirically, say, I'm going to show you the relation, then you will get more understanding on this aspect. So for the time being, keep it mind, I minus S, that's mean the total national savings and investment has a relationship between import and expenditure of a country. That's all you want to keep at this moment. Total a country's investment and savings has an impact on country's export and import. When you talk about this import and investment and savings, it has a relationship between private SP represent the private investment, SG represent the government investment. Government investments you get from G minus T, from G minus T. That's mean government expenditure and income. If you have some residuals or a balance, then you get government service. When private investments and savings, if there is a positive balance, you get a positive balance. So, right. So, if you have a positive of this one, you will have a positive impact on this one, this side. I will tell. Okay. For the time being, all in all, what I want to say is that your government, if you take a country's national savings and investment has a relationship between national import and export. Right? Having said that, so as a result, maintain a current account deficit. Okay, this represent the current account. This or the goods and service accounts necessity the use of foreign resource of savings from private and government service. So if you are not getting enough income from your imports to cover up your export, that will eat out the present the government investment and savings gap, right? That's mean if you cannot earn enough income from your exported item, okay, that's mean from your current account. If you don't have enough in the current account to cover that cost, because you cannot keep a negative value in a current account, because you have to pay, okay, you have to pay that amount, because that's the your transaction in the outside world. So to keep that outside world transaction, you have to use the domestic resources, right? Having said that, we'll move forward. Right, now forget about that theoretical part for the time being. Again, we'll come to the more practical situation used from the central bank data and the ADB data. Sri Lankan main foreign exchange reserves were built up using mainly three sources in the last 2 decades. One is the foreign remittances. Foreign remittances, that's mean our skilled and unskilled people who are working outside the country, their remittances are the main income source. Normally, that was average around $6 to $7 billion per annum last couple of decades. The first, I think in the good old days when we were doing A level, I did my A level in 1990s. Okay, the way back, 3-4 decades ago. At that time, I could remember whenever we were asked what are our main foreign exchange earnings, we were like a mantram, we said tepol rubber, tepol rubber. So, okay, tea, coconut rubber are the main income at that time. So you could see that was early 90s. But that has changed from uh, after that. Now, foreign remittances are the main income source. Then next become the tourism income. Okay, tourism. Again, from the tourism, normally we were able to capture around 5 to 6 billion rupees every year. Then the third main income source become the garment, the apparel sector. That was the third, our foreign exchange reserves that we got. But there is a issue with the garments. You all know that garment mostly depend on imported items. So though we get a huge turnover in terms of dollars from the garment, we have to pay back a huge amount again to the rest of the world for importing intermediary goods. That means the goods needed as inputs for the garment sector, maybe machines, even for management, maybe technology. For everything, we have to pay back to the world again. Anyway, so my second factor is here. In the last couple of decades, our main foreign income sources were remittances, tourism, and the garment sector. Right, right. So, having said that, so if you observe, this is the recent from the 2021 central bank report. If you observe this central bank report, so what you could see, please pay attention onto this part. So you could see, right, the export income was around 10 billion dollars, US dollars, the annual income. The import expenditure was 16 billion. 10 minus 16, that is, we have used a 6 billion, we have created a 6 billion debt during the last year. This was 2020. In 2020, just to import items. Okay, that's mean we were not able to cover up our exports. That is the same story is there in 2019 and 2020. Okay, this was a typical Sri Lankan, export import report of trade account, our trade balance. So 6 billion, right? So having said that, okay, keep this in mind. This is 2020. This figure was 2020, right? So having said that, now I want to go fourth factor. I have now discussed one first, a little background, the history. Second, a theoretical part. The third, our export import income and the main foreign exchange sources. Now I want to pay your attention another factor, fourth factor. It is the GDP growth rate 2019. This is the forecasted GDP growth rate for South Asian countries given by Asian Development Bank. Asian Development Bank do this forecast every year for the South, for the Asia, as well as separate forecast for South Asia. So this is even before the East attack, okay? Even before the East attack. So if you observe, at that time we were not heard about sorry, this is before the COVID-19, where we were not talking about COVID. This is the early December or November they have forecasted this one. Uh, 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 Asian Development Bank. This report came in 2020, but the forecast they did this forecast 2019, right? So what you could observe here, if you observe the country which what I just mentioned ago, that was Bangladesh, which established in around 1973. They had the highest economic forecast that time, the economic potential 8.2% GDP growth rate. Pakistan was 1.9%. Sri Lanka was around 2.3. Barely we are ahead of Pakistan. Even our economic forecast were less, much less than Afghanistan. Afghanistan even they had a much better economic forecast, right? This is before the COVID-19, right? So therefore, here I would like to, you know, put you an argument that is the present, even before the present economic crisis, or when we were facing COVID-19, still we didn't have a much stronger economy. In terms of economy, macro KPIs, key performance indicators, we were not had a much stronger uh, economic indicators when we were facing COVID-19. Okay, that is my first argument. So we faced the COVID-19 with very minimum policy options, very minimum policy. We haven't had a strong economic, forecast, as well as economic indicators, as well as foreign reserves when we faced this COVID-19 activity. That is my first argument. So this is the present situation. Okay, after the COVID attacked us, and COVID is the, the first economic crisis in this world, created in the health sector. So this is the first time the world facing a crisis which has been created, which was created in the health sector. That health sector crisis, expand as a financial crisis and economic crisis. Now in Sri Lanka, it has gone to a social crisis. But it's the same is not true with the other part of the world, right? Because I will tell you, because when other countries faced COVID-19, okay, the COVID-19, had given an impact to the entire world in a same manner, but the strongest of the it depends on how far that you could resist to that crisis, depends on your economic strength. Some of the countries, when they were facing the COVID, we all faced together, the entire world, but they had much better economic situations and stronger economies. So their recovery phase was very rapid. So quickly they stand their own feet again, right? So if you take in Asia, the Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, where the COVID started at first. So these countries, even India, the Indian situation. I think you could remember the late 2021, but they were having a very severe situation than us in terms of COVID. We were so fortunate. We didn't have that much, real crisis in terms of COVID. So we had a much better vaccination programs, and our people are really, I think in terms of health, we had much better position when we were facing COVID, but not the economic, macro variables. We had a very weak macro variables when we were facing COVID. So, having said that, with the COVID, we have done some economic blunders. One is the tax cut. Sri Lanka lost around 10 lakh taxpayers since 2019 with the new government inception. They decided to reduce the tax base. That lost in terms of Sri Lankan rupee, that was around 600 billion rupees to cover. That was the first mistake we have done in our economy recent past. The and in 2020, our public debt reached more than 119% of GDP. Normally in economics, if it has reached close to 120%, that was the alarming situation. And that was the period we got a lot of signals and lot of warnings from outside world, from the Asian Development Bank. Even the IMF warned us. They warned us a little earlier than 2020 that your debt rate is reaching more than your accepted level. We call it debt threshold level. That's mean if we earn in simply 100 rupees, we have to pay more than 120 rupees as our debt and debt service. Okay, as a debt service. Then Sri Lanka lost access to international capital market in 2020. It's because of, I will tell you, because of our foreign reserves were deteriorating and our debt ratio is increasing. Therefore, we were downgraded. S&P, Moody's, or whatever you name it, all the these standard credit rating agencies uh, decided to downgrade Sri Lanka. At that time, what our officials said, they were really scolded them, not understanding that, because they try to kill the messenger rather than taking the message. Okay, so that was another mistake we did at that time. Then the price of dollar against rupee had been maintained artificially by spending billions of dollars. We want to artificially maintain our rupee and dollar exchange rate because of a political reason, artificially. So therefore, we have to pump a lot of our foreign exchange rate just to maintain. The exchange rate depends on the demand for the exchange and the selling, the demand and supply of the dollar. Since our supply gone down due to the COVID, our tourist income was reduced, and our foreign remittances were reduced, and also the global supply chain were disturbed. Therefore, import exports were reduced. Therefore, all three most important foreign reserve avenues were shut down for us. Therefore, foreign reserves came down. Even that time, we want artificially control the foreign exchange rate. Therefore, what happened, we were given domestic imported goods were subsidized in Sri Lanka, right? This was not understand many of the the people who manage the economy. I was telling it, this case from 2008. Most of the foreign items imported to Sri Lanka were subsidized items, because we artificially kept the dollar to rupee exchange rate. We should have released it, at least 1.5 decades ago. Then we should, yeah, we were not, we should not have faced this issue, right? That's one of the mistake we have done. I'll talk on it later, right? So then, as an example, why I use that argument, if you observe a potato coming from Pakistan, and a potato coming from Diyatalava. If both was exchanged in Maharagama, Sunday fair, which is cheaper, the potato coming from Pakistan is much cheaper than a potato coming from Diyatalava. One of the reasons, there are other reasons as well, the productivity and all we have to discuss, but the main reason is that potato is a subsidized product to the Sri Lankan market. Therefore, who are gaining from that? The farmers who are growing potatoes in Pakistan are getting a benefit from subsidized exchange rate of Sri Lanka. So we kept a subsidized exchange rate due to a political reasons rather than economic reason. We did it. I believe it. Whatever the government, I will show you. Then 2000 Sri Lankan East bombing that has also impacted on this one of the foreign main income source, especially tourism. COVID-19 pandemic I explained. Then the other one is to cover up the tax loss, the lost income due to the tax reduction. What the central bank did, so any layman would agree such decision taken listener to face serious consequences. Yes, I agree. Right, right. Then to cover up the lost income of the government, can you remember? I had some theoretical identities of government income, and that's mean G and T. Therefore, the T reduced to keep up the G because we didn't reduce the G. I'm agree. If T reduced, if you are able to reduce the G as well, we lost a 500 to 6 billion annual, okay, annual loss. So if you were able to reduce the government G income also from that, at least close to that amount, then that's a very fair, very rational decisions. We reduced the government income, but we were not able to reduce the government expenditure side. Expenditure sides were skyrocketing day by day, right? Therefore, what we did, we used money printing to cover up the that amount. Then, anti-chemical fertilizer, the act of the parliament, I don't know why they have done it. That was there in their political manifesto. In the political manifesto, that was, if you read it, it said they will, the Sri Lanka will direct to a organic farming by 10 years. If you are doing it by 10 years, at least per year you could launch only 10%. 100 divided by 10, it should be 10 years, but overnight we decide to go for organic farming. Now you know the consequences of that. We are in a really danger of our food security as well. Right. Then the other one is we were refusal to take assistance from the International Monetary Fund on due term. We were getting signals, getting advisors, getting warning notes from the IMF starting from 2016. You are going to a crisis. We didn't listen, and we didn't apply for relief funds on due course. Right. Then this is the lost due to the tax reduction. We lost around 33.5 taxpayers in Sri Lanka. Right. The truth. This is the recent crisis. Okay. But all in all, what I want to emphasize is, yes, these are the immediate reasons for the present crisis. But this crisis was inevitable. We What happened? This crisis was covered by a carpet that was there. Like in Sinhala we say Aliyata Ginipupuru. So this crisis was there. But what happened? The COVID triggered the crisis. COVID shock was only the crisis trigger. But this crisis was there. We have to face this crisis. In my economic little understanding, either today or tomorrow. That was the situation. That was the most, independent economists were telling to the government from 2005. So 2005 is the era normally people try to understand this crisis. If you started the research articles, 2005 is the era. I mean, early from late 2000 or mid 2000 is the era people started doing research on it, publishing research papers and telling this crisis situation. I will explain it. So the country vulnerable to COVID-19 shock was funded in previous policy blunder. It entered the with epidemic with very limited policy options, as I told you before. So we didn't have much. It's like if you are facing a war with a country, we have lost all our weapons. When we start the war, we had very few weapons with us, or we had weapons, we didn't have ammunitions for the war. Right. Now, having that, because I told you that the identity, the theoretical explanation, there are two sides of that explanation. One is X minus M explanation, the import export. We call it the external environment. The G minus T is the internal environment, government, income and expenditure environment. Unfortunately, most of the countries, when they are having a crisis, either it is X minus M crisis or G minus T crisis. But Sri Lankan crisis, according to my point of view, I could prove that it is a crisis created by both internal and external, or X minus M and G minus T. I'm going to prove it now. The external balance, the import export. The government financial problem and the balance of payment have two different problems. That's what I explained already. Burning issues. Now we are having burning issues. Two burning issues. Our external environment also have burning. The internal environments also burning. In singular we say hariyata dekona pattu wena vilakkuවක් වගේ. It's burning from the both side. That's why I said most of the people who are governing at this moment, still couldn't understand this one. I'm really, shocked to hear some of the arguments they are doing at the parliament at this moment. I don't know what they are doing. Right. So the major question with the continual loss of reserves and accumulated external liabilities, the central bank ability to maintain the external value rupee was gradually eroded. This was the crisis. This crisis from 1977, the rupee was depreciated by 350%. After that, 43%, 4%, 170%. All the political regimes, if you observe, we were not able to maintain an external balance. So everybody has to responsible. Everybody has to take the blame. All the KPIs, key performance indicators, were telling us this is not a crisis started overnight. This has been there in the economy. As I told you that only the COVID-19 triggered the crisis. So this is the GDP deficit. Recall the theoretical part I did, X minus M, the external part. I told you that to balance the import, we have to have export, strong export base. The average trade balance from 1960 to 2020, if you do a central bank data to calculate, that was around 7.6 USD billion negative value. What does this mean? Annually, we were feed our end consumers as well as the industry by increase in our debt. That is the thing. Debt is not bad. I am telling you, I'll prove that one. Debt is not a bad thing. Getting loans are not bad. Even I have taken loans. A lot of people take loans. But what is important is how you are going to use that loan, how you manage that loan. Are you going to invest the loan in a proper manner? And I don't want to mess around with you the return on investment. So you are the expert on it. You know that if you have a rupee, you are going to invest in a way that you are going to earn 2 rupees in next year. But how we have done it, so that is the issue. Personal consumption or final goods, and in our this 6.8 billion annual, it include all the final consumption goods like necessity goods that what we import, as well as the intermediary goods. So 7.6 billion. So Sri Lankan current account deficit annually, so you could observe only few years in this year, uh, only few years we had a positive as a percentage of GDP. All other years, it is a, it is a, it is a, all other years it is a negative value. That is the thing that I want to emphasize. Okay, except very few years, our current account deficit as a percentage of GDP, we had a negative value. That is in X minus N. Okay, annually. So what has happened therefore? And this import items, if you observe, 27%, the inside, the contribution to the GDP from imported items were around 27%. That's mean the service sector contribution, the wholesale and retail 27%. Almost all these items are imported items. So, and our service sector is also increasing inside the economy. Internal service sector is also. So you know that a service sector, in a way, one could argue that's a much better. It is very close to us, developed world. In a developed world, also service sector contribute more to the economy. Yeah, that's true. But what is service sector? Service sector are the auxiliary services that you support to the industry. But we had a strong service economy without a proper backbone of a industry. So that this mismanagement was there in the economy. And even in that service sector, 27% is retail sector. That's mean wholesale. In these kind of economies, that's mean we were getting item from abroad, even for first our final consumption and intermediary goods, most of the items getting from ship to mouth. We call it a ship to mouth economy. We call Dutch disease. That's mean if one part of the economy is increasing by sacrificing the other part of these economies, especially the agricultural and industry. So in layman's language, what I want to emphasize, our service sector is increasing without having the same, or without the same is not true with the industrial and agricultural sector. Okay, the industry is struggling, the agriculture sector also is struggling. Only the service sector, the auxiliary service sector, the supportive sector is increasing. So this called Dutch disease, because this kind of economic mismanagement first identified in Dutch. They corrected it, and they had counter measurements, and they corrected the economy, and they were in the right path. We were not in the right path since independence. We were not able to promote our industry and agriculture sector to support the service sector. It was other way around. Our service sector is increasing, but our industry, we were neglected our industrial and agriculture sector. The imbalance has created an external debt burden. Therefore, so the external debt account 2/3 of total government outstanding debt. Now, external debt 2/3 of government income. So that is the external balance. Now I'll show you the internal balance. Internal balance, you know the GT, G minus T, the private sector balance and government public sector balance. It has three parts. Okay, private sector balance, I will explain. Private sector balance means private income and private expenditure. That is the private service. That's in what your income, what your expenditure as a person, what you serve at the end of the day. It depends on your income and expenditure. The same is true with the government. That is the government balance, government revenue and government expenditure. That is government service. So recall my theoretical part, government savings and government investment. So if you observe this part, the internal balance of the Sri Lankan economy of GDP, this is the government and private sector balances. So this is the government and private sector. There is a chat message. I'll give me 1 second to read it. Administration, the economy to export and internal statistics. Right. Right. I'll come back to that argument. Right. I'll first. Right. So you could observe there are three graphs here. First, pay your attention on this graph. This is very, very important in graph. This red color graph. Right. The second one is the most important one is the private sector balance. So what you could observe with the private, so first pay your attention on this blue color private sector balance. You know now what is private sector balance? That is private income and expenditure graph. Okay, the performance of the private sector in layman's language, this is the performance of the private sector. Except only 2 years, that is 1970 during the civil riots of Sri Lanka, and when the war is at its peak. Okay, we had only 3 years, 1, 2, 3, where private sector performance of the economy or the private sector contribution to the economy were not up to the standard, were negative. Okay, right. Then see the other side of the economy, the government sector, the public sector economy. Only few years, except 1975. I don't know why it is. I have to study further. All other years, private sector, government sector performance were negative, unproductive to the economy, not up to the standard, When you add all these two together, you get the, when you add the horizontal summation of these two performance, you get the country's performance. The country's performance is given in the black color. The black color graph will show you the country's performance. What has happened to the country's performance? The private sector tried to, take the economy forward. The government sector has dragged down the economy. This is the real picture. All these are, central bank data. All in all, what I want to tell is, when the private sector going 2, 3, 4 feet forward, government sector has gone 5, 6 feet backward. So the impact would be negative to the country. This is the picture. That's why we have government schools, but we have to go to the private schools. We have government hospitals. We have to go to everything we did by our own. Now, the government is asking us to Only thing government did was the food supply. Now that part also we have to do by ourselves. Now the government is asking, okay, why don't you grow your foods by yourself? All other things we did by ourselves, the private sector. If you want a standard good quality service, this is the reality. Okay, so don't take it otherwise. I also came from a Matara Urubok, Indolavatta, a very poor family, but I have a much better luxury life now because of my education. If you want a quality standard product, you have to go to the private sector for the education. You know me, for the health, you name it. You have to go to the private sector to get a good quality service. All government services were not up to the standard. Only thing they did is this food supply. Now you have to do it by also by your own. That is the thing. So this is the story. This tells you, okay, this is a snapshot what has happened. When, okay, what will happen when when we add this to the corruption as well? The corruption data is not there, okay? I'm not going to analyze the corruption, so you all know the corruption. When the government corruption also added to this one, thanks God, we should be really thankful to the God that we are having at least this kind of economy at this moment. So the public debt, external debt, you could observe throughout the history. I could remember the very first day when I was going to the school. My father was a school principal. He told me that you owe 2 rupees to the world. That was 1977, January 7. That was my very first day in school. Only 2 rupee. Now you all, you and me, even a just born baby, 1 million Sri Lankan rupees, his debt. So this is the external debt. Why? That X minus same around average $1 billion 7 we have to get from the world to feed our country, feed our people, feed our industry. So this is reflected. This is, if this is a tent, if this is a tent, okay, let's say it's as a tent. If this is the tent, to keep this tent, we had to give supportive, you know, supporters. So where we got this support? We got the support from sovereign bonds. So when you got, pay attention to the sovereign bond issue of the country. Normally the sovereign bonds are being the issued by the central bank. This is the injection they gave to keep that tent, attempt to raise the international sovereign bonds to keep the economy running. Very simply, that's mean I get 100 rupees in 19, let's say, to start a day. I spend it in non-performing activities. Then tomorrow I got another 200 rupees from another one. Then I paid the 100 rupees to the guy who got that 100 rupees yesterday, who gave lent me the 100 rupees yesterday. Then when I lent 100 rupees, paid back my 100 rupees, still I have a 100 rupee. Then I use that 100 rupee. Then day after tomorrow I get another 300 rupees. I paid the 200 rupee for that guy. Still I have 100 rupee. I manage that day. Next day I get 400 rupee, pay the 300, manage the day. Day after that I get 500 rupees, pay the 400 rupee, manage the day. That's how we were maintaining our economy. This is the reality. So this is the sovereign bond. So you could see whenever the tent is coming down, we go and have another support from the sovereign bond. But very special thing happened 2019 due to the COVID. So we were able to pay back these bonds also because we got an income from foreign exchange, earning from our remittances, unskilled laborers, our fathers, mothers who are working abroad in a very difficult situations. They, thanks to them, we were getting income. So we were paying our debts and we are having a very good life here. But what happened? Due to the COVID, when we triggered the issue, we were not able to pay back. The swoosh started. Now we couldn't anymore support from sovereign bonds because we were downgraded by the credit ratings. Foreign reserves were coming down. So foreign reserves were coming down. We were not able to support the foreign reserves from sovereign bonds because international rating agencies were downgrading us. Fitch downgraded Sri Lanka up to C rating coming in. You could observe the downgrading. It started from 2005. That's why I said this crisis started in my point of view. Yes, since independence, but it going to worse 2005. Foreign debt versus foreign reserves. So you could see, okay, foreign reserves were increasing because of the support of the foreign debt. Foreign debt. So the debt to GDP ratio understate the debt load. The other one is we were always talking about debt to GDP, but that won't give you the real picture because the total GDP you are not getting from dollar. Part of the GDP you created within the country using your rupee economy. To understand the real debt load, because you have to pay, you can't use rupees to pay the dollar. You need dollars to pay the debt. So you have to earn dollars. Where you are earning dollars? You earn in dollars from your export earnings. So when you put the export to debt ratio from 1959, you get the real picture. What is the trend? It has a upward trend. So where our x minus m always negative, how we are being able, we were been able to, we have been able to, run this economy because getting support from debt. So that is the case. This is the case. We were not try, we didn't do any effort to correct it. Now every month from 2022, every month our total import export balance is $1 billion. From this January to up to now, we have not paid around $4 billion. Today our total debt is around $55 billion. So the external debt service ratio also increased. That's mean the interest payment, that is also increasing. And now the very important part of the understanding, that is one thing, using this debt, what we have done, I told you that use because of the ship to mouth policy, most of the imported items are wholesale retail items, the final consume items in our consumer basket. And the other part of it, this is the analysis of the World Bank. I got it 2017. They were telling us, they were warning, they warned us in 2017 also. Growth has declared. If you observe 2017, we were very happy at that time. That was the era. Within that 2012 to 2017, if you observe that era 15-17, we were getting at least 2015, we were getting around 7, at least let's say approximately 7% GDP growth rate. We were really happy. The government were boosting on it. Okay, no issue. But what was the case? This the case of the 7% came from this growth. We were invested using our the loaned fund. Okay, but they were invested in non-tradable sector and non-performing investments. Personal services, transport, warehouse, financial services, real estate, or and other services. If you observe this mining and quarry, very, very minimum. Accommodation, food and beverage, most of them are non-performing. So what it says, the World Bank, an annual average growth rate declared from 7.3 to around 7.3 to 4%. Inward orient is reflected, that is 70% needed to change to more private investments, tradable sector growth. All in all, what they were telling us in 2017, the World Bank, your investments are not up to the standard. You are investing where you are not getting much return. Your return on investment is not up to the standard. Get some corrective measurements. So they did the analysis and send us a report. We didn't we didn't pay attention. So this is a Facebook. I got it today. It said I mean today morning. So this is the Facebook. I don't know to explain it. You could read it. This is the tower in Canada. Uh, they earn around 140 million annual. The other part I don't know to explain. All in all, what I want to tell is non-performing investments. So up to now, what I told you, the real issue of the economy have two burning issues. Two burning issues. One is the external issue, other one is the internal issue. Both having both are giving us a lot of troubles, but we didn't try to correct them. So we were not able to take export orient industry. We were not. We had enough. So these are very famous stories. Still, the highest canned fish imported country in South Asia is Sri Lanka. We are island. I don't know. We have a lot of agriculture activities. Still, our food safety is highly vulnerable now. So, policy responses. What shall we do? So far, it has been hand to mouth policy, as I said, ship to mouth policy, denial rather than action. We call it ostrich economic responses. But when there is a crisis, what the ostrich is, he hide his head somewhere, and all other parties is uncovered. But we have that sort of policies. We use media and other talkative people to hide the story. And we the other policy responses we did recently is quantitative import restrictions. Instead of tariff prohibitions and license are used, we went a blanket control. We are violating WTO commitments, and both finished goods and intermediate inputs are covered by this quantitative restriction. We didn't have a proper analysis. I told you that most of our industries are depending on imported intermediate goods. Now those industries are really in danger. The sharp company of domestic import inputs has been taken into consideration. In the case of quantitative restriction, we have not taken. And we have increased the interest rate, again in a blanket way. Yes, I agree. If you increase the interest rate to take back the inflation, but when you are doing it, you have to have a proper analysis. Okay, increase the interest rate on final consumption loans taken for the final consumptions. But what will happen if you have increased the interest rate on loans taken for to promote the industry? Then your cost of production goes. We didn't have proper analysis on. So industry is vulnerable now. SME sector is really vulnerable in Sri Lanka. So what shall we do? If you observe, our economy is around only $84 billion economy. Very small when you compare with some of these IT sector companies. So no company in this Fortune global 500 companies. We were like this in 1940s. Still, we were like we are the same is you could observe the same thing. This is the other part of the world. The world is moving. We are stagnated. That is the other case. The world is now started moving right after the COVID. We are still stagnated and struggling in the same point. We call it land like no other. But so I'll go a little faster because I have very limited time. We need to open up for the Q&A session. The first thing we should do, we have to have a huge restructure in the economy if you want to correct it. The stabilization of the macroeconomic environment is the first thing. Enhance the global economic integration, so improve the policy regulatory environment flexibly and sustainable if you want to really unleash our potential. And in the global economic integration, if we don't have the technology, do what like India did. When India didn't have the technology, they went with Maruti to produce cars. So Maruti, Suzuki went to learn to get the technology, learn the shop later. But so they got the technology, they had the technical cooperation, they start the industry. Later they stand their own feet. We didn't do that. We should have used our diplomatic service to get that sort of technical cooperation. But we didn't do that. They improve the business climate to attract investment. Doing business index, you know what's happening. So lot of things, and the government expenditure, we have to curtail the government expenditure by at least 50%. Lot of huge painful restructure is needed at the moment, but I don't think this party politics will do that because they think about their voting base. But by looking at the voting base, you can't do these corrective measurements needed for the economy at the moment. I don't think so. Comprehensive action on all private sector activities we need, because we can trust the private sector. I gave you an insight how the private sector has done it. So manufacturing sector, service sector, we have to think what are the industries that we could go with the subsectors rather than emphasize on service sector. So major exports, we are having the best rubber, we are having the best cinnamon, we are having the best tea, but we are not getting the best out of these best product. That is the issue. So if you observe our top export destination and top import destination, there is a huge difference. Okay, if you observe, this top import are the countries who are producing most of the low quality intermediate products. We are not getting high tech products here, so we have to go with high techs. But our high tech, our exports are going in a different destination. So we have to correct these things. So need to change the status quo of the country. The first step is very, very hard for the success, but we have to identify the opportunity. I think this is a very good opportunity for us to sit back and think and get the correction, turn it from 360-degree. So you know what's happening. Throwing. These are the products if you could observe when you go abroad using pumpkin. So these are the things that we do for pumpkin in the world where we are. From the garlic powder, we just gazetted overnight. People start, sorry, turmeric powder. So it started the gazetted, reverse the gazetted. Now, what is the price of the these turmeric? It's around 50 or 60 rupees per kilo. No standard policies. Imposing, reversing. How can you develop a country? But anyway, I like this crisis because it's a very good crisis to sit back and think. There are a lot of silver lines if you do that. The creative and innovative, a lot of technologies are there. We have to think. Like if you observe the global value chain, the cocoa production coming from, four or five main countries, 70% coming from Ivory Coast, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon. In that value chain, but the best products, the chocolate brands are coming not from any of these countries, but other countries. So we have to think on this global value chain now. This is the time. So very recent, not recently, I mean, 5 6 years ago, Oxford University, disassemble a Benz car. Then their conclusion is the Benz car cannot claim by a one country. There are 56 countries who provide items for the Benz car. So the global value chain is the concept now, not to produce one product and supply. So get into the global value chain. Size doesn't matter. If size really matters, then Singapore won't be strongest one of the strongest economy in Asia. So if there is a will, there is always a way. That's what I believe. But I don't know whether really do we have a will. So I did a little faster the rest of the thing. So if I summarize what I want to emphasize, what I want to tell is this crisis is not an overnight crisis. This crisis was there. The COVID triggered the crisis. For the crisis, there are two main reasons. That is the internal reason and the external reasons. So both these uh, reasons were uh, 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 had some impact to for the present crisis. So now I would like to go more Q and S. Sorry, I don't know whether I have taken more time. I was asked to do it within 1.5. I think I have taken more. Yeah.
That's okay, bro.
Yes, over to you, sir.
Any questions for the
Professor, I'm Sudhir Appa from Enterprise Global Capital. I sent you that, texted you that question. I've been a long years as a currency trader as well, and futures trader in Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Many exporting nations like China and Japan, they make these forex interventions the reverse way that we did. We were trying to keep the rupee strong, but they intervene in the market and weaken their own currency to have their exports look more attractive in the international market. Now, since that our rupee has weakened so much, don't you think that we have a good opportunity in marketing our exports all around the world and getting our exports grown?
Mr. Sudhir, you are right. The statement you made on China, Japan, USA, really I 100% agree with you. Yes. for these countries, they always want to weaken their currency. The main thing is, if you observe these countries, they have a strong import economy. Their import economy is much larger than, sorry, I made a mistake. They have a very strong export base. The export economy is much stronger, okay, than their imports. So they always they want to weaken their economy, because whenever someone comes with a dollar, they could give more quantity, then they are more attractive. They are having a competitive edge in the marketplace when they do engage in world economy. But therefore, they always want to weaken their domestic currency. That is the one thing. The other thing is their currencies. Most of these currencies are world currencies. The uh, Sri Lankan currency is a domestic currency. Therefore, these two reasons, we are not in a position to weaken our rupee. If we weaken our rupee, if you want to weaken our rupee, the only thing is we have to increase our export base. So even what will happen if we weaken rupee? Okay, what will happen? Let's say, I'll take a very layman's example. Let's say 1 to 100. Let's say a dollar is around 100 rupees for the simplicity. Let's say if someone comes to Sri Lanka with a $1, he would get equivalent 100 rupees. Let's say a tea kilo is around 50 rupees. Then if a foreigner comes here with a $1, if a dollar is equivalent 100 rupees, he could buy 2 tea kilograms. If our rupees weaken, let's say now rupees 150, $1 is 150. So if one comes to Sri Lanka with 150, so now we have to give, early we gave him 2 tea kilos, now we have to give 3 tea kilos. If you concentrate on a primary product like tea, when we rupee depreciate, what will happen? We cannot increase the quantity overnight. If you think about this agricultural primary products, to increase at least to tea, we need more time period. So therefore, if we weaken, what will happen? Our total dollar collection would go down. That has happened to us. And tea, if you observe, the other thing is most of the product but we are importing to the world are called income inelastic product. That's mean if you take a tea, how many cup of tea you drink per day? Normally I drink around, maximum would be 3 cup of tea. Let's say I would become a billionaire tomorrow, still I will drink 3 cup of tea. So we were not able to make income elastic product. If you take a car, it is other way around. If you are a average income earner, you will have only 1 car. If you become a millionaire or billionaire, you will have more cars. So that is my answer for you, Mr. Sudhir. Therefore, yes, I 100% agree with you. For them, they want always to reduce their trade deficit, to weaken their own currency, but they have a very strong export base, and their currencies are world currencies. Did I answer your question, Mr. Sudhir?
Yes, sir. But my other point is, sir, the problem I see is that our marketing machinery as a country is very poor. Because
very poor. 100% agree with you. There are so many other things, but I explained the technical part of it. I didn't explain the other side of it.
Yeah, if you notice, like very famous coffee shop chain, Starbucks, they predominantly sell coffee, but they introduced a tea recently, and they launched this tea called chai. Oh, this Starbucks chai, it's big budget launch, and on the wall of the entrance at every Starbucks, they have written a history of tea, and they say in that The best tea comes from this island called Ceylon, and it is Sri Lanka called Sri Lanka now, and they name the tea with the Indian name chai. So it is absurd that they even say our name, but they don't know anything about Sri Lanka or Sri Lankan tea. I don't know whether we are not even supplying the tea to Starbucks. The Indians are supplying the tea.
No, Indian are supplying our Ceylon tea to them. You are right. Now tea is a ready-made drink. Now, if you go to Malaysia or Japan, tea is a drink that we could get from a vendor machine. Here, still we take tea, we boil it, wait it. That era has gone. Time is very precious now. But we were not able to do that value addition. You are absolutely right. That's why I said now you have to observe the value chain. What we want to do. Yes, Danushka, you are raising your hand from long time. I mean, yes, I don't. I think, yeah, you could ask a question. Right. Others, yeah. Please.
As a comment, I think what is the issue with flexible exchange rates?
Yeah, flexible exchange rate. Yeah, flexible exchange rate mean we keep two boundaries and we try to maintain. But unfortunately, not recommending it for country like Sri Lanka. Then what will happen? Because we don't have dollars to maintain those boundaries. We try to maintain those boundaries. We have to go with a free floating exchange rate. We should have gone it in mid 90s. I explain it. When we are doing it, we were subsidizing these foreign goods. Then foreign goods would be, cheaper in our market. Then what will happen our domestic industry base? Our domestic people cannot, compete with them. I'm not talking about industry substitute policy. That industry substitution policy is outdated policy. What we want to do is a industry export oriented industry. So you can't develop export oriented industry if the export items are much cheaper than the domestic items here. So what we need to is to give them a proper training and the proper technology. That's how they do that. The other part of the world, I was in Japan. I know that how Japan have only 11 ministries. One ministry is called Ministry MITI, Ministry of Industry and Technology. So they are the people who are thinking on behalf of the industry. They do research. I recently take part in a Japanese industry forum. Got a chance. They were talking about the next era is the glass era. Now they are, developing training. They are training the trainers into the glass era. The next world, what they think most of the building material and other material would be made by glass. I don't know how far they are right or wrong because I am not an expert on that industry. So that's what. So they have that visionary direction. Do we have it? I don't know. It's a big question. So that's why we have to have a free float exchange rate. We should have it. Now we are having a free float exchange rate, but it's too late. It's too late. Now the patient has got in a third or fourth stage cancer. To treat that sort of patient, only things are surgeries. But when we understood the cancer, identify the cancer in way back 2 3 decades ago, we should have treated the patient with more easy manner. So that's why now the patient is in the third or fourth stage. The cancer, we have to cut down. We need surgeries. That's it. Yes. Now it's almost 5.
Any other question from participants? There's another question, Professor. Do you think CBS will understand what's monetary policy is all about? That's
No comment on it. Sorry. I don't want to. I mean, you all
yeah.
know what they have done. Okay, sorry. See, central bank. There are main two policy options for a country: the fiscal and the monetary policy. Normally, these policies are being handled by economists. Economists, but I don't know whether central bank is governed by the economist in the recent past. I'm not talking about the present, current governor. The before that, do we had a proper governor to the central bank? You have to ask by yourself. I don't I don't know. I don't know what the central bank has done really.
Any other question from participants? I can have one more question and then we can finish it off due to the time factor. Any one more question we can allow. If you have any comments, you can call me or even send me an email. And even the feedback about this presentation, you can contact me or even Saji, and then we will contact you for the next CPD. And on behalf of the SEC and also on behalf of all the participants, all the stockbroker firms, unit trust management companies, I'd like to thank Professor for this very interesting presentation. And thank you very much for spending your valuable time. I know that you are a very busy person. So thank you very much. On behalf of the entire industry, I would like to thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. And all the participants, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And if you can send me this feedback as well, that's also really good for me to
Yes,
also
yes.
improve. Please, I very humbly request, please forward me, the feedback. At
I
least I must
will
be.
do that. Yeah, I will do that. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.